In the early 1900s, Japan was rising as a major modern power in the East, culminating in their shocking victory over the Russians in the Russo-Japanese War of 1905. The US brokered peace treaty failed to satisfy the expansionist plans of Japan, who wished to limit the influence of the West and create an Eastern Japanese empire. One of Japan's major concerns was Korea, which was led by the Joseon dynasty, a hermit kingdom isolated from foreign nations and Western modernization. However, Korea's geographical location forced it onto the world's political stage. In fact, Japan saw Korea as an arrow pointed at the heart of Japan. In a secret, unofficial agreement between US Secretary of War Howard Taft and the Japanese Prime Minister Katsuro Taro, the US recognized Japan's sphere of influence in Korea, thus allowing for the complete annexation of Korea in 1910. During the initial stages of Japanese occupation, the Japanese subjugated the Koreans to strict, harsh laws and severe punishments. Especially after the assassination of Japanese statesman Ito Hirobumi by Korean nationalist An Chung-gun, the Japanese led an intensive roundup of suspected nationalists who were brutally interrogated and imprisoned. The Japanese took control of the Korean government and banned all political organizations and even the right to assemble. They controlled and censored Korean newspapers and magazines and burned over 200,000 books. Japanese police watched intellectuals, religious leaders, and politicians, and by 1912, over 50,000 arrests took place. Military force was also used to pacify the righteous army resistance and drove many political activists into exile. Many Korean nationalists were sent to Seodaemun Prison, built in 1908.
This is the prison held over 40,000 prisoners.
Alright, so here we are at the prison. This is where the Japanese imprisoned over 40,000 Korean nationalists who wanted independence. Many prisoners were arrested with no idea what was charged against them, and they were routinely tortured and beaten. The prison was built to hold 500 prisoners, but sometimes held over 2,000. The dark human cells were often overcrowded with poor ventilation and poor sanitary conditions that often led to the spread of disease. They spent a lot of time in jail cells just like this. Come on inside for a second. And notice this space here is usually taken up by about 8 to 10 prisoners at once, and sometimes even overcrowded, where people couldn't even sit down on the ground. Women were also put in prison, and were occasionally beaten and sexually assaulted. Some prisoners were punished very harshly in what was known as a stand-up coffin. You certainly wouldn't want to be in one of these for a long time. Many prisoners did not survive their sentence, dying of neglect, disease, beatings, and the primary form of suffering, starvation. Over 400 prisoners were sentenced to death and executed on the gallows inside this building. The bodies were quickly carted off through this tunnel that led to a graveyard.
This is the tunnel where after the Patriots were executed, they would take their bodies and then carry them out to where the cemetery is, so no one would see the bodies and cause a big uproar in the prison.
Many prisoners were arrested after the March 1st movement, a non-violent independence movement inspired by President Woodrow Wilson's post-World War I doctrine of self-determination. 33 nationalist leaders secretly gathered in Seoul to read the Declaration of Independence. Later, thousands of protesters marched in the streets, chanting Taehan Tangnit Manse, which means Long Live Korean Independence. Yu Guan-sun was one of the student protesters who helped to organize the March 1st movement. Unfortunately, both her parents were killed by the Japanese police during the demonstration, but Guan-sun was tried and sentenced to 7 years imprisonment at Seodaemun Prison. She was placed in a small underground cell and routinely beaten and tortured until she died on October 12, 1920. Her last words were, "Japan shall fall." Today, she is known as the Joan of Arc of Korea and is a constant reminder of the struggle for freedom and tyranny that the Koreans faced during the Japanese occupation.
Awesome.